the Megalodon, a gigantic prehistoric shark with rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth, one of the largest fish ever recorded on this planet, and one that has since struck fear into the hearts of us all. Thankfully, this terrifying ancient beast went extinct millions of years ago, and although it's rightfully earned its place as a monster of the deep, there are many more where that came from. Here's 10 sea monsters that are scarier than the Megalodon. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to The Supreme, and click the notification bell for more lit content. Let's get rolling. Number 10. Alien sea creatures. Before we get into the meat and bones of these terrifying sea monsters and put the Megalodon to shame, take a look at this concept art that was recently discovered online. Just look at those teeth. While a giant crocodile-esque jaw is one thing, the possibility of a gigantic sea creature being able to split its maw down the middle is an evolutionary trait that's sure to put any earth monster to shame. Now, although visually speaking, this terrifying sea monster is incredibly similar to several giant fish from the ancient world, it's only a concept depiction of what sea life may have been like, and scientists have long speculated about what possible other creatures could exist beneath the oceans of foreign planets. Millions of light years away, scientists have envisioned what terrifying forms that predatory creatures could have taken as they terrorize these strange and undiscovered planets from deep beneath the waves. We know more about our own moon than we do our own oceans, but the oceans of remote and undiscovered planets? Well, we know nothing. Who knows what's out there? Number 9. Helicoprion. Now, you'd be wise to imagine that the myriad species of shark would be more than welcome on this list. After all, it's difficult to envision any other creature that are as feared as the apex predators of the deep blue sea. From the great white to the hammerhead, the shark is feared for a reason. However, if you've ever heard of the Helicoprion, then you may be aware that this bizarre evolutionary offshoot gave a whole new meaning to the unrivaled destructive power of shark teeth. Instead of doing things the same way as its shark predecessors, the Helicoprion was designed to act exactly like a buzzsaw. Instead of its rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth, the Helicoprion employed what's known as a tooth whorl, a rarely seen evolutionary trait that looks like a cross between a circular saw and a regular saw. Now, while this is a terrifying combination on its own, the Helicoprion was speculated to dismember its prey through a prolonged sawing method, giving a whole new meaning to the terror of these shark apex predators. Thankfully, they're extinct. Number 8. Leviathan melville. Named after the legendary author Herman Melville and his fascination with the pursuit of the white whale in his novel Moby Dick, this ancient giant whale gives a whole new meaning to the cautionary tale of that classic piece of literature. It lived between 12 and 13 million years ago and is speculated to be one of the few whales to have ever primarily preyed on other small species of whales that it shared the ocean with. Believed to have been roughly the same size as the modern sperm whale, the Leviathan melville was a massive species of sperm whale that feasted primarily on baleen whales, though its teeth, which grew to massive several feet in length, suggest that it may have had an even larger appetite. In fact, its only similar surviving species is believed to be the orca, who use their massive and powerful jaws to rib and tear at the flesh of prey. The ocean is a scary place. Number 7. Stethocanthus. If you were baffled by the bizarre Helicoprion, then this ancient and extraordinary shark is sure to raise a few more questions. The evolutionary traits that have been discovered of the Stethocanthus are still so strange that scientists are struggling to understand exactly why this fish evolved in the way that it did. Believed to have died around 323 million years ago, the Stethocanthus strongly resembled modern-day sharks, save for the enormous and bizarre anvil-shaped dorsal fin it possessed on its upper body. Not only that, but the top of this fin was covered in rough tooth-shaped scales that matched a patch of skin on the shark's snout. The leading theory is that the fin was intended to mimic a larger mouth, giving off the appearance that the Stethecanthus mouth was much larger than reality. Although scientists are still trying to piece together the bizarre shark, if correct, it may be one of the only species of shark to employ visual camouflage. If true, then what else can they do? Number 6. Big fin squid. While many of the sea monsters that make their way onto this list are thankfully extinct, unfortunately, this terrifying creature is very much real. If you're a thalassophobe, then please look away right now, because the big fin squid may very well be one of the most disturbing creatures to have ever lurked in the ocean depths. Initially, the big fin squid appeared to be so bizarre and terrifying that it was believed to be a hoax. Unfortunately, the reality is far more terrifying. Also known as the long-armed squid, it's one of the most elusive and least studied creatures on the planet, and scientists are still struggling to identify the inner mechanics of this alien-like species. Why are its arms so long? What is it reaching toward? Where do they come from? We're not sure if we want to find out. Number 5. Dunkleosteus. Although very much extinct, the Dunkleosteus gave a whole new meaning to the phrase, "there's always a bigger fish." This 20-foot-long carnivorous tank redefined our image of many species of fish that swim throughout the oceans in modern times. Believed to have existed during the late Devonian period, roughly around 360 million years ago, the Dunkleosteus is amongst the largest prehistoric fish to have ever lived, and it was believed to have roamed the ocean in small groups while hunting its prey. To defend itself, the Dunkleosteus was covered in an almost impenetrable armored shell, making it the largest armored sea creature to have ever existed. But that's not what makes it so terrifying. Because of its power behind these creatures' jaws that mark it as one of the most impressive monsters of the ancient world, the Dunkleosteus possessed jaws that could close with a bite force of over 7,000 newtons. If you couldn't guess, that's a huge amount of force, and it's believed that the Dunkleosteus could have sheared off the flesh of its prey like a hot knife through butter. Number 4. The bobbit worm. Many of the creatures that we've seen so far are monsters in their own right, huge, gigantic beasts that have terrorized the oceans throughout Earth's history. This one, the bobbit worm, is nothing like them. In fact, in terms of its size, it's absolutely tiny. However, don't let that fool you, because the bobbit worm is one of the most horrific sea creatures to have ever existed. And also, unfortunately for us, it still does exist. Thriving in shallow waters of only a few hundred feet in depth, the bobbit worm can grow up to 10 feet long and 3 inches in diameter. It's covered in razor-sharp spines that it uses as legs to dig its way into the seafloor, where it then buries itself into the sand and leaves a tiny piece of its head still exposed. The bobbit worm has tentacles that detect minute changes in water pressure, and when it senses a creature nearby, it'll propel itself like a bullet from its hole and snap its mandibles around its target. The bobbit worm has been known to exert enough force to crush stone, and in many cases, it just cuts its prey in half. The bobbit worm is a creature like no other, and it gives a whole new meaning to the term sea monster. So beware, scuba divers. Number 3. Mosasaurus. If 2015's Jurassic World taught us anything, it's that despite having an island filled with terrifying prehistoric lizards, there's always a larger and more terrifying monster lurking beneath the waves. The ancient Mosasaurus stole the show, but the reality behind this prehistoric sea terror is much more disturbing. Although a much more diverse species than what the movie led us to believe, the Mosasaurus of the ancient world existed between 100 million and 65 million years ago. Many of them were cunning predators, similar to several other sea monsters on the list. They used their razor-sharp teeth to rip and shred at their prey. Although several of their species were thought to have been peaceful foragers, one thing is for certain: the largest of the mosasaurs could reach around 50 feet in length, dwarfing pretty much every other sea monster of the ancient ocean. Although in Jurassic World the Mosasaurus appeared to be around double that size, the sheer force and significance of a 50-foot predator is terrifying nonetheless. Similar to snakes, they were believed to possess jaws that could expand and swallow large prey whole, essentially giving the Mosasaurus free rein to feast on anything and everything. Number 2. Giant stingrays. The truth is, much like the crocodile and its ancestors, the stingray is amongst the most resilient aquatic species this planet has ever seen. However, in the ancient world, they grew to an astonishing size and were seen in numbers never before witnessed on planet Earth. In some cases, the giant stingrays of prehistory were believed to have grown over 17 feet in width and possess a 10-inch poison barb at the tip of its tail. Although its ancestors aren't exactly as large, the giant stingrays saw a boom in their population in the fallout of the dinosaurs. After the meteorite wiped them all out, the oceans were the last vestige of life on Earth, and the giant stingray population grew to an astonishing size in the following several million years. The thing is, their terrifyingly ancient design has survived to this day, and the methods in which they ruled the ocean are just as effective as they are right now. Their neurotoxic spike has been known to pierce directly through human limbs, and these otherwise docile creatures are far more complex than we're all led to believe. Number 1. Plesiosaurs. The term sea monster has long been synonymous with a very human urban legend: the Loch Ness Monster, the Great Lakes Monster. For centuries, cryptozoologists have been convinced that an ancient sea terror survived prehistory in the murky depths of the planet's oceans. Whatever the case, their prehistoric counterparts are the literal definition of being a sea monster. Although the species of plesiosaurs are many, their unique anatomy has led to numerous speculations as to their role in the ancient world. These long-necked reptile predators have recently been theorized by some to have functioned similar to the raptors of the dinosaur world, essentially making them a pack of sea monsters that terrorize the waves without mercy. Is it possible that the Loch Ness Monster isn't so friendly after all? There, we have the 10 sea monsters that are scarier than the Megalodon.